Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to another edition of BOA, The Revival. And tonight we've got a very special guest, I guess you could say, here on the show, a good friend of mine. And in the interest of full transparency, we're actually taping this show not even in the middle of December, around a couple days before the middle of December 12th, the evening of. And but you're hearing this at the beginning of 2024. So we're in kind of a weird liminal episode in a lot of ways, which is good because this is kind of like the perfect guy for kind of weird liminal episode. And I'm talking about that's a compliment. I hope you realize.
Yeah. No, I get it.
If anyone could appreciate the liminality of all this, it would be you, is what I'm trying to say. And the you being our friend Matt Hopewell, also known as AP Strange. You probably know him from social media. He's got a big presence on the formerly known as Twitter, X. I don't like calling it X. We'll just say Twitter. Under the name AP Prodigiosus. But you probably, I think it just comes up as AP Strange now on there. And that's kind of his brand, if you will. You can find out more from him at apstrange.com. He's got a fantastic blog. The blog posts on there they're really amazing. I got to tip my cap to you, Matt. They're really fantastic. I've spent the weekend reading through them, and they're just so detailed and so well-researched, and it's just they're a real pleasure to sort of immerse yourself into those blog posts and read them. So I highly recommend folks check that out. So he was actually the guest on, I guess you could say, the last BOA before the revival. Matt was afraid that he killed Binnall of America. No, it wasn't anything like that. It was just that whole last.
I closed out the Winter of Weirdness, and then you just didn't come back for a while. So
I was just like, fuck this. No, it was blog talk. It was the old setup. It was kind of like it was just. I think that the Winter of Weirdness kind of convinced me that like the old method had become unsustainable at that point. And I was so frustrated, and I'm like, I don't know, we gotta like really step back and figure this all out. So, but now he's back, so it's kind of fitting in a way. It's poetic. He's back here to join in on the revival after helping us close out the Winter of Weirdness. He's a good friend. He's a Massachusetts guy. We've hung out on multiple occasions here in the Bay State and around New England. Weird areas. So welcome back to the show, Matt. It's great to be able to chat with you again tonight.
Well, hey, it's great to be here, and thanks for your kind words and everything. It's always fun to talk to you.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, well, I had a good time last time you were on the show, and you were definitely on the list of folks to get back on Binnall of America once we got up and running and everything. And like I said, this is weirdly the first episode in a way of 2024, so I won't be like really fake and be like, well, how are your holidays? So,
well, we're time traveling here too, and it's almost like the last couple of years didn't happen. They're off the books of Binnall of America. So closed out the Winter of Weirdness, and now we're back. It's 2024, as far as I'm concerned. I do a little bit of time traveling myself, so it's fitting. It works.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think psychologically, a lot of us kind of like almost by this time of year, certainly by the 26th, you kind of just throw the year out at the end. It's like, all right, you know what? It's done. It's just done. So,
well, it's kind of like when you have a birthday coming up and you kind of get confused about how old you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're just like, well, I mean, basically like whatever the next year is.
Right. Yeah. Like once the month starts, like, yeah, well, I'm pretty much that. So let's not, we're not going to hang unless it's like you're about to turn 40 or about to turn 50 or something. Then you hang on as long as you can.
Right. I don't think anybody's too eager to hold on to 2023. It wasn't particularly special as a year. But I think we're on an upward swing.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, this time next year we could be in the throes of despair, depending on how the election goes. So it's, I'm anticipating an extremely stressful, irritating year. But we'll see. Hope springs eternal, right? Hopewell. Hope springs eternal from the well of Hopewell. You can tie that in somehow into like a concept album or something like that.
Well, when I was a kid, it was always hope you don't hope well, which I don't know if that was supposed to be an insult or something. It was just a play on my name, but
yeah, that's just weird. I don't even know. So what have you been up to since we talked to you last March? Anything particularly exciting? I know I saw you at the International Cryptozoology Museum back in September. Have you been on any crazy adventures in the last? Because you're kind of like a legend tripper of New England. You do stop at a lot of interesting and cool places in the area. So have you seen anything particularly interesting since the last time we chatted back in March?
Well, it's funny because I was about to say in 2024 we may see an uptick in clowns because like the last real significant clown wave was during the 2016 cycle, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, during the 2016 election, yeah.
So, and I was anticipating more of them around 2020, but we got a pandemic instead. So,
right, exactly, yeah.
But yeah, we may see more of it. But since you're asking about places I've visited, it occurred to me this past year that the Phantom Clown sightings, the original Phantom Clowns, as reported by our friend Lauren Coleman, were in the Boston area. And it never occurred to me to try to kind of track down the areas where those reports first came from. But nowadays, I find myself in Boston a lot more often for work and personal reasons, and I'm more familiar with the area. So it kind of hit me like around the anniversary, what would have been the anniversary of the original Phantom Clown wave of the early 80s. I decided to go out there and do some clown magic at Franklin Park.
Yeah.
So that was some legend tripping there. So I found what I decided was the clown portal.
Did anyone see you in the midst of your clown magic? Like, was anyone walking by and look over at you and be like, did you actually, maybe you were like the clown? It sort of self-perpetuates in a way. Maybe someone walking by was like, was that a fucking clown? Because you were clowned out, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, I didn't have a wig, but so my preparations were I went to the costume store in Cambridge, I believe it is, and there's like a thrift store and a costume store there. It's like Boston Costume Company or something like that. So I got myself a brand new clown nose there. It was much better than the one I had because I had like a heavy duty foam one, and this was like that lightweight foam that you can breathe through. So it was much better.
I didn't know there were different styles of clown nose. All right, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a connoisseur of clown noses, so you have to know these things when you're a Phantom Clown hunter. So, and I also bought myself a rubber chicken while I was there. I figured that would be important because it's the whole thing with clown magic is you gotta subvert expectations. So normally with some magic rituals, you'd have to sacrifice an animal, so you'd have to actually do away with a chicken. So in this case, I'm subverting that and buying a chicken, and it's just a rubber chicken, like a gag chicken. So that was my whole plan there. And it kind of serendipitously worked out that after stopping in this place, the route we took to get to the park ended up taking us kind of along the sequential route of where the Phantom Clowns were seen.
Oh,
so we had to go through like Brookline, and that's where some of the original reports were, the very first ones, and down into Franklin Park. And we ended up getting there just before the park was closing for the day. So we had like 20 minutes to do it. So there weren't many people at the park, but the few that were there were definitely chuckling at me when they saw me like jogging down the path with a rubber chicken and a clown nose on.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, you perpetuated the cycle of the clown cycle.
Right. It did occur to me. I'm like, maybe somebody's going to report this now. It's going to pop up in like a, local Roxbury Facebook page. Like, I just saw some dude in Hawaii with a clown nose running through the park.
Door, yeah. Well, that's wild. Yeah, I remember you.
That was a fun one for me. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying. Yeah, that's wild. I remember when you did that earlier in the year. Well, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of places. I was talking to you in September about this. Josh Cutchin and I tried to find the Dover Demon Rock, and it's like we spent probably like 90 minutes fucking looking for that rock from the iconic picture of the Dover Demon on the rock, because Nate Brislin found it, but he couldn't recall where. And I shake my fist at Nate. He didn't write down the coordinates or anything. He just kind of like found it, took a picture, and fucking left. And it was like, well, where was it, dude? And he's like, I don't remember. I don't think he was like keeping it a secret. I just think he doesn't remember. So we walked down along the road where the Dover Demon was spotted, and it just all looks like kind of familiar. And it was early September, so it was late summer. And there was still a lot of grass and everything. And I was saying to you, we should go sometime, I don't know, like after winter or something, shortly after winter, like in March or something, and try and find that rock. Because there's a couple of, like, significant things you can kind of find that you'll know you're at the right rock. There's like a stump in front of where the rock was, and it's a very weird, you can kind of identify the wall from looking at the wall. But
yeah, I'm sure we'll find it.
Yeah.
The original sighting was it in the wintertime that it was originally seen? I think it might have. I don't recall,
but probably. Yeah. Actually, no, I think it was like in April, I want to say. Because I had thought about going out there for the anniversary, but it wouldn't have made any difference because I don't know where the fucking thing is. So I just know it's on a crazy busy road. Kutch and I were with no sidewalks or anything. And Kutch and I were like, this is dangerous, dude. Like, every time a car came, we'd like get way over to the side of the road because it was like, this is really fucking, they're whipping down this road. And I'm like, holy fuck, dude. I'm like, we're going to get hit by a fucking car looking for the Dover Demon Rock. This is like the worst / best way to die in a way. This would be fucking forever connected to the Dover Demon mythos. Lauren Coleman would have a field day. He'd love it.
Right. Yeah, there'd be a big blog post about the dread synchronicities around the Dover Demon and looking for the rock.
Yeah. We should.
Well, that's why I was recommending Ponyhenge, which is way closer to you. I'm sure you've been there, right?
I have not been to Ponyhenge. Where is that?
It's in Lincoln.
Where the D. Cordova is?
Yeah, it's really not far from the D. Cordova Art Museum.
Oh, weird. Well, next time you come down for D. Cordova, we'll go check out Ponyhenge.
Yeah, you have to see Ponyhenge. It's a magical place. And for the listeners here, Ponyhenge is just a bunch of rocking horses and hobby horses and toy horses in a field. It's like a farmer's field.
Yeah.
And I guess somebody left one there once, and then they just started multiplying over time. People kept bringing more, but they seem to rearrange themselves, and it's
interesting.
There is something weird about it. It's kind of a roadside.
Oh, it's definitely America. Weird.
Yeah, there's a roadside America aspect to it, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's paranormal, but the first time I went there, it had just snowed, and it was kind of weird because like the fence had an inch of snow on it, and none of the ponies had any snow on them.
Oh,
like they had been moving and shaking it off or something.
Yeah.
And they were all arranged in a circle, but I don't know how they were arranged prior to that. But there weren't any footprints out there or anything. You would have seen it in the snow. So
right, yeah.
Really kind of weird.
I'm sure it's eerie as hell. Like just imagining it is eerie as hell. But being there in the moment is, I'm sure, pretty creepy as it is. Yeah, I've been to Rabbit Henge in California, which is a art installation that is a bunch of rabbits, giant rabbits, like in a circle, similar concept, if you will. But this is like in an office park somewhere. So it's not as creepy, I don't think.
Yeah, I've seen the photos of it, and honestly, I didn't get a creepy vibe from Ponyhenge. I was like smiling the whole time. It was like a wonder vibe. You're like, this is so cool. This is a magical spot. It just felt so whimsical and strange. And my dog wasn't freaked out by it. I guess he thought he was a pony too. He just kind of hung out.
That's a good barometer of what's creepy, I guess, right? The dog kind of acts as the canary in the coal mine of creepiness.
Yep, for sure.
Has Bernie ever given that kind of vibe when you're in a place? Because I know you take him to a lot of places when you guys go out and about.
Well, I don't know. I think he gets freaked out. He gets freaked out by stupid things. I mean,
yeah. Don't we all?
He's got a very small brain, so normally, I guess, what sets him off is scents outside, and every once in a while, you'll see like his hackles go up, and he'll start growling and barking, and you know he smells something. And around where I live, we do have like coyotes and fisher cats and stuff, so I imagine he can smell that and he gets freaked out. But no, I've never really seen him freak out about a place that we've taken him to necessarily.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I was thinking this. Well, I was thinking about talking to you. Have you ever gone on a ghost hunt?
Not like in any substantive way, like not with a group or with people. I've gone to places that are allegedly haunted. I've kind of done my own sorts of just kind of feeling out the location, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have any equipment or anything other than
right.
Usually, what I'd bring with me is a pendulum. That's about it. So
yeah. Well, I'm a Luddite anyway, so the equipment part to me is just like, I'm probably going to break it, so I don't want to hold the thing or anything like that.
Yeah. I got a pendulum. I got dowsing rods now. I haven't really had a chance to use those, so I'd be willing to try that out. But, yeah, I mean, I like visiting places where something historical happened or going to find a place. Like, over the summer, I was in Rockport, Maine, camping, and there was the location kind of on a peninsula in Rockport where Andrea Puharich had his laboratory and the Round Table Foundation, and that was like where they originally contacted the Nine and all that. So I wanted to find this place, but it's kind of like it's barricaded inside of gated communities and like rich people houses and stuff like that. And there's signs up like residents only. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to risk getting arrested to try to find where Andrea Puharich's old weird house is.
Yeah, it's like spiritualists do not enter. We know you're visiting here.
Yeah. But yeah, I like finding spots like that. Like anywhere I go, I can usually come up with something really weird or really obscure to go look at. And often it's off the beaten path and you're not in a crowd of people, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like I was in Salem.
I try to do that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was in Salem recently, and I know you've been here before too. The Spirit Board Museum in Salem.
I have not been to the Spirit Board Museum, actually. We had talked about it for Paramania, but there was just only so much time, and I just didn't get the chance to check it out. It was that or the Pirate Museum, and I figured I enjoyed the Pirate Museum so much in Cape Cod. This is a spin-off of that, so I'm like, well, this is really informative, so I kind of ushered people towards that. We didn't have time for the Talking Board Museum. But tell me about it, because now, next time I go to Salem, maybe I'll check it out.
It's really cool because my wife and I went there around our anniversary. So we got married on Halloween.
Right.
So, and people from Massachusetts know that's probably the worst time to go to Salem, really.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like the week of Halloween. But I had taken the day off from work and we were supposed to go to a concert in Beverly, which isn't far from there. And the concert got canceled. So, I already had the day off. I'm like, screw it. Let's just go to Salem anyway. Maybe it won't be that bad in the middle of the week. It's probably just on the weekends and at night that it's really bad. And Yeah, there still were a ton of people there, but it was manageable.
Yeah.
But that's why the Spirit Board Museum was so cool, because it was kind of like people weren't necessarily going there.
Right.
People were mobbing like the wax museums and the witch dungeon and the graveyard sites and all these places. And we got right into the Spirit Board Museum, and we're just there talking to the owner, and he's the only one in there.
Yes. And he's the guy that collected all the spirit boards. So.
Yeah. And really cool guy. But that was nice. It's like in the back of a store. So you have to walk through a store and then pay admission to go into the back room, and that's where the museum is. Right. So all kinds of Ouija boards and different like knockoff Ouija boards. Has the original printing plate for the old Parker Brothers Ouija boards that were made.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hanging on the wall. I bought one there. I got this. It's a Osiris board. It's
wow.
Well, it's an early 80s like UK Egyptian themed board. So
did you see the news this year about the Jesus Ouija board?
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Some wacky group came out with a Jesus Ouija board. It's essentially a Ouija board, but it's like you can talk to Jesus with it. That's like, it's decorated like all heavenly and shit. And then some pastor was like, "No, don't!" I'm like, "No!" He like fucking goes running in the virtual room. It was like, "No, stop! This is, you can't talk to Jesus with this." It was like, "Oh,
that's
shit,
how you talk to." That's how you talk to air quotes Jesus.
Yeah. They're kind of genius, like in their advertising. They're like guaranteed contact with Jesus. It was like, oh shit, dude. They got these people they're tempting fate with this shit right away.
Yeah.
Oh man. Have you ever done a Ouija board?
Yes.
Have you used Ouija board?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not an official one. So when I was a kid, I grew up in a house that had all kinds of weird paranormal activity. Talked about it a little bit the first time I was on.
Okay.
But when I was in my teens, like going into my teen years, preteen and teen years, there was a lot of poltergeist activity at my house, and a lot of it was centered around myself and my cousin.
Yeah.
So my mom ran kind of a daycare at the house, which really was just composed of my brother and I and my three cousins. And then two of my friends started coming over every day too. So it was a whole bunch of kids running around.
Yeah. God bless her.
Yeah. Right. So my three cousins are more like sisters to me than cousins, because we pretty much grew up together. They were there every day. But we had wanted to bring an Ouija board in, and my buddy had one. And his parents were atheists that probably thought it was just quaint that he wanted one. And they're like, "Oh, isn't that funny?" My mom was a Catholic, however, and she's like, "You're not bringing one of those into the house." So what we did is we made one out of construction paper. We got the design, like snuck the instructions for the Ouija board in, which had a picture of it. So we were able to copy that all onto a piece of construction paper. And then we used a magnifying glass as the planchette.
Oh, nice.
And we were too chicken shit to do a spirit contact with the lights out. And it was the middle of the afternoon. And so in order to make the room dark, you had to like really close all the blinds. So what we did is we closed the blinds on one window, and we closed the blinds in the room next to us. But the main blinds that were close to us, we left like halfway down.
There you go. Yeah.
So it was like dim in there, but it wasn't dark. It was a little dimmer, but it was still pretty much daylight. So we said, like, if there's a spirit present, give us a sign. And those blinds that we left up to let the light in fell down.
Wow.
And it was dark. And I had just enough time to think, like, oh, that's gravity. It just let go and it fell. And the blinds in the other room went up as though somebody had pulled the string and pulled them up.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Yeah, shit. Did everyone freak out? They must have.
Well, you'd think so, but there was a lot of weird stuff that happened at that house. We just kind of took it as Okay, then. I guess we are doing this in the dark, and you know, I guess that's a sign. I guess we got what we asked for. But yeah, I mean, there was always stuff moving around in that house, so that was less scary than a lot of other stuff that happened. So,
do you think that's what kind of lit the fuse for you to be interested in all this weird stuff?
yeah, pretty much. Like my earliest recollections are of actually, I was probably a toddler, when I saw luminous entities and spoke with them in the room,
Oh wow, yeah.
and I wrote that up on my blog because I got tired of telling the story.
Right.
But I did tell it on this show too. So
Yeah, I think we covered it on the show. I still am blown away by the weirdness of it.
right, yeah. But yeah, because there was multi-levels to it. It was a spirit contact, or so it seemed, some kind of entity contact, and also involved like an out-of-body experience and a premonition of the future. Which the premonition part is the part that proved it to me.
Yeah.
So that's the part that really stuck with me. So as a small kid, it was like my mom had like the Mysteries of the Unexplained from Reader's Digest volume.
Those are awesome.
Yeah, and I read that thing cover to cover so many times. And so I mean, I was well versed in all kinds of stuff by the time I was in my preteens. And I'd watch like Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings. I was a huge fan of Sightings when that started out.
Sightings was great. Yeah. Sightings was like they took the best of Unsolved Mysteries and just did that as a show. Like, I remember when I would watch Unsolved Mysteries as a kid, I'd be like, who gives a fuck about this guy that was murdered? I want to see more about the abominable snowman. So.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to the Queen Mary. Are there any new ghost sightings on that old ghost ship? I want to see that, But,
Right. Yeah.
But I remember being a kid and being like, I want to be a parapsychologist when I grow up, I always put it this way. Like when I watched Ghostbusters as a kid, and the very beginning of Ghostbusters where Peter Venkman's doing the psychic test with the Zener cards.
Yeah.
Like I recognized the Zener cards. I knew what those were when I was watching that movie as a kid. I'm like, that's legit. Those are actual psychic testing devices. They're called Zener cards, So.
Well, it's just, I think we talked about this on the show last time, where we can always sort of reach other go. But it's just interesting that we're both the same age. It's just so weird to look back on how marginalized this stuff was when we were kids. And now it's just really, I wouldn't call it mainstream, but it's like, it's kind of, I don't know if I made this comparison when I talked to you, but I've made it plenty of times on the show. It's kind of like been lifted up in a lot of ways alongside sort of like geek culture in a way. It's like the paranormal is, at least if you're into it, people don't necessarily kind of look at you askance as much as they did in the past. It's sort of like, okay, that's your odd interest, because I'm into like people are into comic books or whatever. I'm not, but it's that kind of thing. It's like there seems to be almost like a weird general acceptance of like, look, if you're into something weird, that's cool. People don't, they may not engage with you on it, but they don't necessarily shit on you for it either, which is a nice change of pace.
Yeah, I mean, the downside is they engage with you on it in a very superficial level, and I try to restrain myself on that because there's a very real danger, and I think that's an apt comparison where you talk about things that were niche geek topics that are now so mainstream. I mean, like look at Star Trek. You used to be, if you were a Trekkie, you were like the lowest rung of nerds.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
You were there with like the D&D playing group, and like D&D was maybe a little cooler than Star Trek when we were kids, now
all that stuff has like a cachet of coolness to it that's like,
look at how many Star Trek series are there on right now? Like there's 3 different ones that they're currently making,
right. Yeah.
So, and everybody talks about it and everybody loves it. Like it wasn't always that way. I mean, I used to wear a Star Trek pin as a kid and get punched for it. So, it is kind of like that because now where you see people kind of, people trying to experience it for the first time, and they're enthusiastic and they want to get into UFOs, or they want to get into witchcraft, or they want to get into ghost hunting because of things they saw on TV, or because of the congressional hearings, or because of witch talk or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be like dismissive of that, but that's really the same thing as being, the hipster who's mad that everybody likes his band, that the band that he only knew about before. Like, oh, I liked them when they were only releasing demos and they before the big album came out. You guys are just posers now. Like, I feel like there's a very real danger of some of us old heads kind of being dismissive of people that just want to have a legitimate interest in the topic and get involved. So there has to be a balance where you like kind of welcome in the new people and try to inspire them the right way, but it can be frustrating because I know that I've had tons of coworkers kind of glean that I love the UFO subject, and they're like, hey man, the government just said UFOs are real. And I'm like, no, they didn't. I don't have time to get into this at work.
That's the exact, took the words right out of my mouth. It's like, I don't have time to explain to you, and obviously not you, these are theoretical, hypothetical people, and it's like, it's not even a slam or a diss or a gatekeeping or anything. Like, it's just, the further you get into these topics, the more complex they get. Like, all the original ideas that you have completely go out the wayside once you dig into it more. Even as something as simple as Bigfoot, where it's like, oh, it's just a ape thing that they haven't found yet. And it's like, oh, not so fast. There's, about a half dozen possible explanations for this thing. And some of them are even weirder, believe it or not, than the possibility that there's a bipedal ape walking around.
Yeah.
If you can believe that. Like,
that's the stuff that I think you and I are on the same page with this, that we want the, like, weirder than weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So just hit us with the basic theory, because we want weirder than weird at this point. We've been looking at this for a long time,
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think that's the challenge in a lot of ways. We're both good friends with Steve Berg. That's why I kind of hold Steve Berg up as sort of a, I try to draw from his sense of wonder in a way.
Thank God.
Because like I've grown so cynical and hardened over the years of looking at all this, and you still have quite a sense of wonder still as well. I mean, I have a sense of wonder, but it's been beaten down by 20 plus years of doing this shit. But it's
I do publicly. That's what I'm saying. I put on a public face for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's hard. I think that's for me the hardest part in encountering someone who's sort of like new to all this, where it's just like, slow your roll, because you're in for a world of of frustration and disappointment. So it's an awesome world that you're going to be getting into, but it's just you have to learn to let go of the desire to know, and once you let go of that desire to know, then you'll learn all kinds of crazy shit, and you'll just keep going down the rabbit hole of weird.
Right. And I mean, that is a very profound thing that you just said. It ties, that almost sounds like a Zen sort of thing. Like, if you want to know more, you have to stop wanting to know more. Almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
you have to
your
stop
point,
trying to solve you have to be,
You be comfortable with the mystery, really, is what it is.
Exactly.
So, that was one thing this summer that I was pretty excited about, was I got to do a presentation for the conference that Ryan Sprague put together, Anomicon, and that was kind of my whole idea with that, was using the UFO mystery as an example of a way of accessing the mystery school tradition in like magic and occultism.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you just said. You said it in a couple of words, and I spent 20 minutes and did a bunch of magic tricks to try to illustrate. But that's what it is. It's like for all of us, there's an initiatory event, and we're mesmerized by the glamour of it, and the wonder of it. And we think, well, I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to have this special knowledge once I do figure it out. And there's something special about me, or there's something special about this experience I had. And the people that cling on to that really kind of end up miserable a lot of the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But what ends up happening to most of us is we get our hopes crushed, but then we find something else to get wondrous about. Or like we lose the thread with something we've been researching and it seems hopeless. And then one day out of the blue, it comes back. Like you get a new clue and you're on the path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some new story will pop up and you'll be like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Yeah.
And you realize that the more you distance yourself from that desire to know the answer and you just sit with the mystery and allow the mysteries to keep coming, the more inspired you are to really go out and learn more. And at the end of the day, you end up learning all kinds of things that you maybe didn't set out to learn, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of in a weird way. Yeah. My path somewhat is similar in a sense like that, where I first picked up these Jim Marrs books way back, like over 20 years ago now. And it was, once I finished those, this is back when the internet was nascent. So there really wasn't nearly as much information. So I was like literally going in the index and being like, where the fuck did he get this thing about, like, I'll be honest, this is how times have changed. I'm like, who's this David Icke character that claims the fucking queen is actually a reptile? Like, what is this? What is this Christian? Like, I'm going in the index, like finding the book, and I'm like, then I'm going to Barnes and Noble, and I'm like, order this book now. I need to know why the fuck this guy thinks the queen is a fucking alien or a reptile or whatever. It was So as you go down these further and down these further paths, although nowadays, in a sense, it's a good tie. It was kind of like it's more treacherous world out there. There's a lot of, it's very politicized and everything. So, like I said, now David Icke, it's like there's some suspect shit about that. So, but when I was a kid, you could say, when I was just getting into this, had the paranormal mind of a child, if you will, because I had only just started. I was like, he thinks there's fucking reptiles that like wear a human cloak? Like, what the fuck? Like,
well, there are wacky and fun ideas that are also horribly problematic.
Right, exactly,
I think it's fine to still investigate those as long as you recognize it, you know,
right,
and contextualize it in what you're doing, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I mean, you're always a hair's breadth away from something that's horribly offensive when you're dealing with the paranormal, because it has a long history, you know.
Of especially of problematic people that kind of either dip their toes into it or actually are part of the scene, and then it turns out they're like, oh wait, this guy.
Well, that's the thing is, I suspect that if you go back to like when 14 Times was like a really wacky publication in the 70s, and like the high strangeness of the 70s, that when the paranormal and occult milieu of the 70s culminated in like TV stuff like In Search of and all that stuff, like when there was a big wave of it back then, and this carried on through the 90s, I think, where it was almost like a courtesy and sort of an etiquette in the occult or paranormal, UFO, magic world, all of it, just generally stuff that you'd hear on Coast to Coast AM or something. There'd be like there's an etiquette to it where people didn't really question each other's politics and stuff like that, or didn't really shout each other down when the ideas were horribly, you know, because we're all in it together, right? Was kind of the idea. We all have these wacky fringe beliefs, and we're in a safe space where our fringe beliefs aren't going to be questioned, because like, I'm not going to attack that guy because he thinks the moon landing is fake, as long as he doesn't attack me for saying Bigfoot is real, you know? Right,
exactly. Yeah, but plus it was a more quaint time back then, because you could read an article from a guy who thought the moon landing was fake, but you couldn't like then immediately berate him within 30 seconds as you can now, with thanks to the wonders of the internet. Back then, you'd have to write a fucking letter. You'd have to figure out where he lived, you know, or write a letter to 40 Times and be like, that guy's an idiot.
Yeah,
now, 30 seconds, I can get online and be like, hey, fuckface, the moon landing wasn't fake at all. What's your problem, asshole? You know, we've turned into a very coarse society thanks to our ability to connect with people so fast.
Well, I'm not saying people didn't fight with each other. They most certainly
yeah.
did. I'm saying it seemed like there was a certain etiquette around maybe just like not calling people out. Like people call it like call out culture now or whatever, cancel culture, that kind of shit.
Right.
But really what it is like I think people used to be able to get away with stuff a lot more easily in fringe subjects by virtue of the fact that it was a fringe thing. So
yeah,
and people didn't question it as much, and now they are, and that's just people democratically choosing where they want to put their faith in any paranormal person. Is nowadays the politics plays into it more. But
yeah,
I feel like as recently as a decade ago, you could hear like Holocaust deniers next to people that were saying UFO disclosure was around the corner on the same show sometimes, and people didn't really blink at it. They're just like, okay, like,
yeah. It's yeah.
And
Maybe
sometimes they were the same person, like.
I wouldn't be surprised in some sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is, yeah. It's an interesting, especially, with regards to the UFO disclosure route. It's getting completely, like, broed out now to the point that I want really nothing to do with it. And I don't know, I'll probably be repeating myself on the year in review episode, but I haven't actually recorded it yet. But there's a part of me that feels, and I said to you when we were kind of setting the show up, I'm like, let's not really even get into UFOs. But there's a part of it, this is related to what we're talking about now, not per se the latest happenings or whatever, but it's like, I don't know if you remember sort of the old adage or the old sort of like musing from people in the UFO field when they were like, when disclosure happens, they're going to take it away from the UFO people, and it's not, no one's going to give a fuck what we have to say. I mean, it's kind of gotten to that point almost now.
Right, they've already got there. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's like, it sounds antithetical to say in a way, but it's like UFOs now have become so mainstream, they're almost not even paranormal anymore. And it's causing me to lose interest in that aspect, the whole UFO disclosure, UAP stuff. That's fucking mainstream. That's like if they had found Bigfoot. I think I would be just like, all right, well, Bigfoot's out.
Right.
Like, okay, I'll follow up on the news about Bigfoot that they captured or whatever, but it's just not part of the world of our world anymore, of our world of weird.
Well,
and it feels that way with the UAP stuff.
Absolutely. And I mean, it is funny to me because I think that there's so much of UFO culture in our lifetime, has been wrapped up with like kind of the X-Files, truth is out there, force the government to release the secrets. And nowadays it's this like flip-flop thing where the people that are doing that are quote unquote whistleblowers from the government.
Right.
And that's how it's been for this whole time, is like spooks whose job it is to lie and hide things come out and those are the people bringing the truth to us. We're like, no, man, those are the people we used to try to fight against, right? I thought. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I had this thought today, like, of David Grush being kind of like the meme of Steve Buscemi from 30 Rock, where he like walks in dressed like a kid with a slung over his shoulder. Hello, fellow kids. But he's just kind of showing up and being like, hey, fellow UFO guys. It's like, where did you come from? Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, wait.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's dispiriting as a longtime UFO buff. And not like in the sense kind of like we were saying earlier where it's like, oh, the band got, I was a fan of the band back in the day. It's just like, I just don't really, I just don't care for the band now that they're so, like the band's changed, it's that kind of thing in a way.
Well, here's
it's like not the same old band.
Here's another pop culture analogy that I think you could probably speak to, because I've meant to write about this, but I always forget, because I had a plan for it, but it didn't work out. So I may still yet. But I think of ufology in a lot of ways like professional wrestling, right? And there's the kayfabe aspect to wrestling that wrestling fans love and know very well. But it's
Yeah.
almost like if a bunch of guys showed up and thought wrestling was 100% completely real and everything that was happening on it was real. And they're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
man, can you believe that guy? Can you believe he just like smashed that guy with a chair and just like
They really hate each other, you know.
I think that guy came back from the dead or something, you know, and believing all the stuff that happened. You're like, dude, you know, it's a show, right? Like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There is a certain amount of that nowadays too. Yeah. With UFOs, I always try to classify it as the UAPs and whatever this new thing is, they can have it. You know, I'm a flying saucer guy myself, but it's an interesting. Just the audience is so weird. It's just a very weird audience of people that, like you're saying, it's like a whole bunch of people showed up that haven't been
almost be like
clued in to work, to use wrestling parlance.
I am curious in that analogy, though. I want to know what your reaction would be. So, suppose you showed up at like a wrestling event, and it was billed as like a professional wrestling, and it looked, by all appearances, it had all the trappings, but the audience just sat there and studied it like it was high art, and they were all like, I see. Like,
right. Well, there's part of that with the academic interest in the subject that's kind of sprung up in the last few years, which I also kind of find myself not having much of an interest in, just because it's like, to me, I'll use a wrestling analogy that I've used before, where it's like, there's different kinds of professional wrestling around the world. So there's like American wrestling, which is like a melodrama soap opera. There's Mexican wrestling, which is sort of really acrobatic gymnastic style. And there's Japanese wrestling, which is like portrayed as super real in the sense that it's like a sport. They portray it as a sport. And the people who follow, there are people in America who just follow the Japanese wrestling. And I kind of liken them to the people who sort of just follow the academic ufology, where it's like, I don't have time for the silliness of the disclosure movement and the UAP stuff and David Grush and Lou Elizondo. That's all silliness. That's all American wrestling. Right. I'm interested in the Japanese wrestling, which is the serious stuff, the academics and their papers and their thoughts on this stuff, and how many aliens can dance on the head of a pin and that kind of thing. And to me, I kind of just observe both camps from above, and it's like, look, guys, the serious UFO people can sneer all they want at the disclosure people, but at the end of the day, to bring it back to that wrestling analogy, it's whether you're in America, Mexico, Japan, it's still two guys in their underpants pretending to fight each other. And that's what the UFO thing is, man. It's just flying saucers. It's still silly flying saucers. You can't break free from the trappings of what we're watching here. So I find it kind of like, I just roll my eyes when it's like these academics talk about UFOs. It's like, oh, come off it, man. It's just two guys in their underpants fighting. It's just flying saucers.
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy. But we said we weren't going to get into the UFO stuff.
No,
get all salty on that, you know.
We got a little bit, but I will pivot to Bigfoot because we both love Bigfoot. I was reading your piece. I don't have the title in front of me, but on the blog. And what struck me, this ties into what we've been talking about, I guess, sort of how things change over time, especially you've been in this for a long time. Talk about how, like, idolized Bigfoot in a sense, and how it's less of a zoological specimen, it's quote, less of a zoological specimen, more of a rising spiritual force. I see what you're saying there, and I kind of would attach in my own way the idea that I think Bigfoot, and you touch on this sort of at the beginning of the piece, where you're like, he's everywhere. He's doing everything. Every group Bigfoot has become like a folk hero in a way that it wasn't when we were growing up. Or
a folk saint, perhaps, you know.
There you go. Yeah, put the two ideas together. Yeah. Yeah, folk saint, like I don't know what that would be, like a Saint Nick, right? Or a Paul Bunyan or something like that. You know, it's
sure.
But Bigfoot. It's really interesting in a way, and it's refreshing and cool as a longtime Bigfoot fan to see Bigfoot everywhere. Like people love Bigfoot. I think that's kind of a sea change from when we were growing up, when it was just like people didn't take it seriously and laughed at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Bigfoot was always a gag, you know.
Right.
I think the big three were always Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and Elvis sightings, And
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
kind of, and I mean, that's never really left my, I've gone through phases where I wanted to look at this more seriously, but Bigfoot, Elvis, and Nessie have never really left,
Right.
They're all three in my heart all the time, So
yeah, I mean, people will still sneer at someone and be like, "Oh, you probably see Bigfoot," but it's overarching in the culture. You can see that Bigfoot is like a folk saint, as we've dubbed it here. It's like this,
right? Because I mean, I feel like
figure of mythic
I see
proportions.
more Bigfoot paraphernalia and yard decorations, in people's yards or on their homes, than I do the old Virgin Mary shells that you used to see, you're
right.
Remember those, and the St. Francis statues and things like that. I feel like that's less common now than somebody having a Bigfoot in their yard, which is kind of wild,
Yeah,
there is an iconography that goes with it, and that is its own spiritual force. However you want to classify it.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you touch on this in the article where it's Bigfoot represents something I think maybe people are kind of yearning for in a lot of ways, like this connection to nature, this sort of free spirit, this detached from the technosphere. There's a lot of qualities to admire in Bigfoot that I can see why people would really kind of appreciate it now more than in the past where they hadn't really given a second thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, one of my focuses in that piece too is the different ways people identify with Bigfoot, and it seems like outdoorsmen and hunters like to, and then you see him in the beef jerky commercials and stuff like that. So Bigfoot's often portrayed as male and very macho, and it seems a little ironic because the classic Patterson Gimlin film, Bigfoot Named Patty, is it's well documented that she seems to have breasts, so they named her
probably
Patty.
A lady Bigfoot. Yeah.
So the best example we have, or the best evidence we've ever had, is from a female Bigfoot. So there's this feminine energy to it too. So I was kind of doing a comparison there with Marian apparitions and the Virgin Mary in general, and Bigfoot, and the concept of Mother Nature, basically. So
right. Yeah. It seems there's a thread there for sure. People should check out that blog post. Do you remember the title? I don't have it in front of me.
I think it's entitled "Nestled in the Holy Bosom of Bigfoot."
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
the Bigfoot boobies post is what I call it.
Yeah. Well, it's a really I would say prescient maybe, or poignant, or it's kind of it pings a lot of interesting ideas. Like I said, it's you definitely can see that Bigfoot's more than a mysterious creature that may live in the woods. Now it's become an idea. It's become a concept in a way that it really wasn't up until maybe 10 years ago or so. It's fascinating.
I think it may have been, but again, it might have been something so fringe that people just didn't get into it. I don't remember who it was, but there is a small group in the Pacific Northwest that believes they can telepathically commune with Bigfoot.
Oh, I'm sure.
They have this whole system around it, and I think it's related to UFOs in some way. Then you go back to indigenous traditions anywhere in the world where they have some kind of upright hairy hominid.
Yeah,
they usually revere it as some kind of nature spirit or something like that. So
exactly. Yeah.
So
it speaks in a way, unfortunately, to that Western idea where it's we need to get this thing, we need to capture it or whatever.
Yeah.
It's again, it kind of goes back to the idea we were talking about, where it's when you step back from the mystery kind of blossoms in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. And that's in a sense, that's kind of, I feel like people have, with the exception of TV shows and shit, I don't see a lot of people going out looking for Bigfoot. Let's face it. They just don't. I mean, maybe every now and then or whatever, maybe there's one or two groups every month or so, certainly not ghost hunting or anything like that. So it's almost like we've kind of given up the chase for Bigfoot. And in turn, Bigfoot has become more than this creature that we want to hunt down.
He's ascended and become all pervasive. But
That's our Bigfoot, and return to its roots in a way.
Yeah, I would say so. But I mean, that also gets back to, if there's anything I hope to achieve when I do write my weird nonsense posts that I write, it's that there are like a lot of different ways to think about these things. Because if I'm talking about Bigfoot as a spiritual force, that doesn't preclude the idea that there also could be a missing hairy hominid.
For sure.
Yeah. So I mean, both can simultaneously be true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I don't want anybody to think I'm ultimately dismissive of all that, And
no, it's like Santa Claus was there was a Saint Nick guy that kind of serves as the basis for Santa Claus. So it all kind of like, there's a spectrum, if you will, that you can kind of see there. For sure.
I'm team Santa Claus too. I mean, we're past Christmas now, so we don't need to talk Santa Claus, but
right,
theoretically past Christmas.
We're in that liminal state here. We're
liminal Christmas, but I'm team Santa Claus. Santa Claus is absolutely real. So
he's certainly real. Yeah, he's certainly real in a sense, in many ways, in many senses. I would say, it's an interesting. It's an interesting concept for sure. Now, talk about this blog post. I have this on the notes here because I was blown away. I'd never heard of this character, Timothy Dexter. You have a blog post, The Journey of the Fool, where you talk about two eccentric characters. I think a lot of people in the know who are listening to Binnall America right now probably know Emperor Norton. You can kind of get into that as you spill out this tale, if you will. But I was blown away because I had never heard of this Timothy Dexter character who was originated from Malden, I believe, Mass.
Yeah, he was born in Malden. Yeah, which
is right near me. Like a very long time ago, like well over a century ago, maybe even two. I don't recall off the top of my head, but he just an amazingly weird, eccentric character that I had never heard of before. So talk about this dude.
When I first discovered Lord Timothy Dexter, I became very fascinated very quickly and had to learn a lot more because the more you learn about him, the more interesting he is.
Yeah, he's wild.
I don't think he was necessarily a good guy, but definitely a very wacky guy, And prior to learning about Dexter, I already knew about Emperor Norton. Being an extremely devout Discordian, except for every other Thursday where I draw a religion out of a hat and devote myself to that. I know the Emperor Norton as saint of Discordianism, and I can talk about him in a little bit. But Dexter kind of seemed like Massachusetts, the Massachusetts version of Emperor Norton. He was that wacky, but he's also kind of the opposite of Norton. This is a guy that failed upwards in the most spectacular ways.
Yeah, that was the amazing part. Yeah.
One of the world's luckiest men, and almost to a supernatural extent. He really should not have been as fortunate and as rich as he was. Starting from starters, he was never a lord. He called himself Lord Dexter. He applied that honorific to himself because he thought it sounded cool. But or he even tried to make himself the king of Chester, New Hampshire. And they weren't having it.
I remember that. Yeah, I was in there. Yeah.
So he had to settle for Lord. But he lived in Newburyport, Massachusetts. He married I believe she was a widow, or kind of a woman that was a little bit older that had wealth that pretty much everybody thought was going to be doomed to be a spinster, and he married her.
Right.
One assumes for the money. That's kind of to get the dowry and her fortune, her family fortune. So that's not great. But he becomes a member of Newburyport High Society. For those who don't live in New England, Newburyport is a coastal town north of Boston, right. And it's to this day is where a lot of rich people live. It's a ritzy kind of coastal town with some nice parks and stuff. But most of us can't afford to live in Newburyport, I don't think.
No, for sure. We can visit though if you get a chance. I don't know how recently you've been to Newburyport. I went there this summer, and it just dawned on me that I should tell you about this because like I turned this corner and there is a fucking like enormous, almost airplane hangar sized building that is just like a giant flea market.
Oh,
and it had some amazing things. So if you're ever looking for new flea markets, there's one in Newburyport that it was enormous, and I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy.
yeah.
And it was. I saw one of the few things I actually would have wanted, where I was just like, holy shit. Generally, when I go to a place like that, I kind of wander around, and if there's something that catches my eye, I kind of just like put it in the back of my head, and then just keep looking, and it'll keep kind of drawing me back to it. That's I don't want to pull it out now, but I have this like fucking volcanic looking statue of Bigfoot. Let me see. I'll show it to you because we're on the video. Like that I found just I walked past in it didn't have the Santa hat. But I walked past and it's heavy as shit. When I was up in upstate New York at a similar type place. But I saw like one of those old timey like scuba masks, that have the circular fucking and all the things, and I'm like, oh, I want that so bad, but it was like $500.
Yeah,
so I was like, I don't want it that bad, but yeah, if you ever get up to Newburyport, I could pinpoint it on a Google map for you, but yeah, it's a huge warehouse, huge like airplane hangar size.
Well, I was up there over the summer. I happened to be in the area for work, and I had some time to kill, so I was like, I'm going to swing by Timothy Dexter's house because it's still there.
Nice.
So I just, parked on the side of the road and took a picture of it. And that's in the blog post that I wrote. And that's kind of inspired me to put that up because I had written it a while ago. And I was like, it's time to revisit Lord Timmy.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, that I think it was Confederate times when this, or was it? No, it was in the Revolutionary War.
Revolution. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because he had somehow like transferred all of the money from the wife to the new currency, but people weren't sure if the new currency was going to take off essentially, and then they were like, that it did, so then he became like an instant millionaire. Right. And it was like, holy shit. Yeah. And you pointed out in the blog, like people couldn't stand him, so like you should sell coal to the biggest coal mining town in England, you asshole. And somehow they fooled him into thinking this was a good idea, and then
it worked out for him. Yeah, selling coals to Newcastle, it was that already was in the parlance as a slang term for doing something ridiculous and stupid. And the other people in town were trying to bankrupt him. They're like, hey Dexter, you should send a bunch of coal to Newcastle, England. That's a great idea. Just to see if he'd do it, and he did. And the coal arrived in Newcastle just in time for a miners' strike. So nobody could buy coal from the mines. And his ship shows up full of coal, and he sold all of it. So, anytime he did something, no matter how stupid it was, he would profit off of it.
Yeah, it's really wild.
Ridiculous looking man. He wore a giant floppy hat. He had a tiny hairless dog that would follow him around. He would pay people that were he would kind of pay people that were like hangers on to him just because he had money to like carry him around town, like in one of those carriage things.
Oh Jesus!
Like old Rajas or something would,
Yeah, like an emperor.
And then somebody would have a guitar and be singing ballads of Timothy Dexter's greatness.
Oh my gosh! So I can see why people couldn't stand him. Then that's
right.
It's like beyond eccentric.
Yeah, and his house was all decked out with statues. He hired a guy to carve wooden statues of famous people from history, but then he would show up and like micromanage the guy, and he would nitpick, and he'd be like, "Well, can you make it Napoleon, but can you make him like look like me?" Make him look more like me. And by the time the guy was done with his statues, the artist didn't want to take credit for him because they were hideous. Because they were kind of like statues by committee in a way,
Right.
So his house was awful. Like it just looked garish, and it had all these huge statues around it. And people in Newburyport wanted him gone, and they couldn't do anything about it. And everything they did to sabotage him only made him richer. So This is a wild story. He's a wild character.
Yeah. Now, I'd be interested. Now, when you went to the house, I'm going to assume the statues weren't there anymore. It would be interesting to track down what became of those statues.
Well, nobody really knows because some of them got wiped out by storms. Some of them caught on fire when the house caught on fire at some point.
All right.
Some of them were sold or auctioned off, we suppose, and I believe pieces of some of them are in like the historical museum in Newburyport.
Oh,
so
really?
You may be able to still see some of the statues in Newburyport, in their, I guess, historical society.
Interesting.
The house itself,
check it out.
Yeah, the house itself has been rebuilt like a couple times because there were multiple fires there. So it's built to look a lot like it would have during his time, but I don't think it's kind of a like a ship of Theseus sort of situation. You replace stuff enough times, it isn't actually the house anymore. But
right.
I found out recently that almost became a headquarters for the Theosophical Society when Catherine Tingley was the president of the American section of the Theosophical Society, because she grew up in Newburyport and she was looking to buy that. And she almost bought it, but then decided to go a different direction because it needed too much work to become a functional place. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
And now just like some person owns it.
Yeah, I believe people live there. I think it's just like a residence now. Might be multifamily, because a lot of these huge homes from colonial times in this part of the world have been divided up because no one family could afford to run a house like that, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was reviled, but Emperor Norton was beloved. It's like a tale of two fools, if you will. It's kind of like the idea of the blog post.
Yeah, because Norton had no money at all, and everybody took care of him, and everybody loved him. And he just claimed himself to be the emperor of the United States and the protector of Mexico. Although it's unclear, what his duties as protector of Mexico were. But he would wander around town in like a military uniform, like a ragged old military uniform, and he just showed up at the newspaper office one day and declared himself emperor. And they're like, "Well, it's a slow news day."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm sure you can relate to the slow news day, Tim.
Absolutely. Yeah. If somebody showed up, except for that lady in Canada, if somebody showed up claiming they were the emperor of anything, I'd be like, "I'm listening. Go on."
But
now, this was like whenabouts was this? This was like pre-Revolutionary War that he showed up.
No, Emperor Norton was after Dexter, so this would have been closer to the Civil War.
Oh, no, pre-Civil War. That's what I meant. Pre-Civil War.
Yeah.
So even way before 1900s, even.
Right. I think he died. He died in the late 1800s. I think around 1890s sometime. So, and I mean, thousands of people showed up for his funeral by the time he died, and he was really just a bum. If you think about it, he was just a bum. Yeah. But he would make his own currency and people would honor it. Like he could literally print his own money and people would be like, "Well, okay, this is an emperor buck," you know?
Yeah, that's kind of genius though. If you can win over a small town as their local eccentric, then be like, "Hey, here's a fucking Timmy buck that I invented," and they'll take it. You've figured it out, dude. You've got it.
I mean,
You've got it made.
What else do you really need?
I can't actually pay you for this, but I made these really cool fake dollar bills, and you can have them and, do whatever. Yeah. People are like, "Yeah, all right, here's a gallon of milk, man. Awesome. I love this."
Yeah, because he had almost exactly the opposite arc of Dexter, too, because he started off with some money, like his family had money. And he was born in England, and he came to the United States originally because he wanted it was around the gold rush in Southern California, and he was hoping to prospect some gold, and then decided he was better off becoming a merchant, and got a little greedy and ended up losing all his money. And then his life was only better for it. He was better off being poor and living off the alms of the people around him, So
well, what's amazing to me, pointing out, so that's kind of why I wanted to make note of the timeline. It's like he's still like relatively well known. Like even in San Francisco, I think they still kind of have a day for him or something like that, maybe. Or he's certainly kind of part of the culture there.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly in a way that Timothy Dexter never been. I was in Newburyport this summer. I didn't even know anything about this guy, but Emperor Norton is revered.
There might be a Dexter revival someday. Maybe I can make it happen.
For sure, yeah.
Like I said, he wasn't that likable, but people love a villain too. He's just wacky. But yeah, I mean, I mentioned the Discordianism. In the Principia Discordia, Emperor Norton is listed basically as a saint, like a proto Discordian. So he's got an honorific there, and people are still very enthusiastic about the Emperor. I think there's a society around Emperor Norton, like a preservation society dedicated to archiving him and stuff. And I think
that's amazing.
Right, and I think there is one for Dexter as well within the Newburyport Historical Society, and they tend to be a little bit more charitable than I am in their assessment of him.
Yeah, you're being real mean to Dexter here. I liked him. I didn't think he was that bad.
I do love the man for his weirdness, but like I just kind of think he was people had their reasons for not liking him. I mean, to prove who was actually his friend, he faked his own death and held a funeral at his house. And his wife, I
forgot all about that part. Yeah,
his wife knew what was going on, and then he basically beat her afterwards for not being sad enough.
Oh Jesus!
It's like she knew he wasn't really dead, and I guess he expected her to act or something. But
okay, I missed that part of the blog post. All right.
I don't know if I
remember
put
the funeral
there,
part. Okay, I remember the funeral part, but the beating. All right, that's not cool.
Yeah, smacking the wife around is never good. But there was another
part. But he
part
faked his death. That's pretty wild. That's like pre-fucking Mark Twain. That's like pre that whole story, the Huckleberry Finn or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy that he actually did the thing that later became.
Well, he wanted to see who was just hanging around for his money and who was actually his butts, how people behaved when he didn't. And not that many people showed up, and it might have just been not many people believed that he actually died. But
it's entirely possible. Like by then he might have had a reputation. People like, oh fuck him. He's not dead. You can see him right there. He's peeking out the fucking window.
He's in the window.
Yeah. How much did he pay for this fucking elaborate funeral? And he's already ruining it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But he did have a pretty good showing at his actual funeral. A lot of people showed up, and maybe some of them were dancing on his grave, but I do appreciate.
Newburyport?
What's this?
Is he buried in Newburyport?
He is. He wanted to be buried in a tomb on his property, but they didn't let that happen. So I'm not actually sure where his grave is, but it can't be too hard to find. The other thing about him that's great is he wrote a book called A Pickle for the Knowing Ones, and he considered himself a great philosopher.
This?
Yeah.
A pickle for the knowing ones.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And he considered himself in it as the first in the East and the North and the world's greatest philosopher or something like that. He invented his own spelling and his own way of writing for this book. Like none of the book words are spelled in the proper English way.
Oh yeah, I remember the excerpt. Yeah.
And he used no punctuation at all, and sold out the first edition. So they had to print another one, and it's still in print today.
There you go. Yeah.
So the man couldn't fail.
It really is. Yeah, it's amazing.
He was more or less universally disliked, and Norton failed miserably, but lived comfortably off of everyone's good graces. So it's kind of an interesting comparison of the two men, Yeah.
I really love that. It was quite the journey of a blog post.
Yeah.
And Emperor Norton had a little dog too, right?
Well, he was pictured often with dogs. There's a really famous cartoon of him with a pair of dogs, which were celebrity dogs in San Francisco at the time. San Francisco, I guess San Francisco has always been a place where they just love little oddities and stuff.
Yeah.
So there were a pair of stray dogs that were named Bummer and oh man, I can't remember the other one. Remember Bummer? But there were two. They were pictured in this one cartoon, and apparently they didn't really have any association with the Emperor. They just made this cartoon with them next to each other.
Well, they were probably like the city's 3 resident ragamuffins. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
They were the 3 tramps of San Francisco, the 2 dogs and this guy.
Yeah, the cartoon is big. Oh, Bummer and Lazarus were the dogs.
There you go.
And in the cartoon, Norton's getting food from like a buffet table, and the dogs are basically begging from him. You know, I guess when he saw the cartoon displayed in the window of a shop, he got so mad about it, he started banging at the window with his cane until he broke his cane.
Oh, Jesus.
So Norton didn't like it very much, but I don't think it's that he disliked dogs, but he didn't like being associated with them, apparently. So,
well, yeah, I think if you were like, if you're like together as the 3 tramps of San Francisco and the other 2 are dogs, I could see how that might be kind of like, hey man, I'm just Emperor Norton, man. I'm just trying to get by. Why are you being a dick?
Well, he's also the emperor. I mean, you got to show
exactly.
him due deference for the emperor of the United States. But I mean, he did actually, correspond with world leaders too. like Queen Victoria took letters from him, and Lincoln took letters from him. Like there was some kind of correspondence.
Humored him.
What's that?
They just humored him at least humored him in a way.
I guess, yeah. They didn't brush him off. So,
it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting time. It's like, what is celebrity? Yeah, back then in a way, he might have very well been almost like a national celebrity, if in a sense, to anyone who was blessed enough to be able to know what's going on in the nation as a whole. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were stories about him that got national attention, So he was known outside of San Francisco as well,
I find it amusing. You mentioned Dexter wanted to be buried in a tomb on his property, but they wouldn't allow it. I find that, in a sense, pretty hilarious, because we're talking about like right around after the Revolutionary War. And it's like, if you couldn't get away with doing whatever you wanted back then, you must have been really fucking hated by the community, because I think I just kind of imagine it was pretty laissez-faire back then. It was just like, look, I'm going to get buried on my property. Whatever. It's your property, man. Do what you want.
But
the fact that they wouldn't let him is pretty wild.
I think a lot of those coastal towns, though, were full of uppity rich people, So
yeah, there's a religiosity too, where it'd be like, oh no, you can't get buried on a hill. You have to be buried in a proper graveyard or something like that.
And it's a pretty main thoroughfare. Like, it's on High Street in Newburyport, so it's a stone's throw from where like that shopping plaza is, and all that in the park and all that stuff. So
it's a gorgeous town.
People probably had their eyes on it and didn't want to deal with having to move a tomb later. Like, no.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, dude, yeah. When you're
dead, we're going to wait till the widow dies and then move in and build our own thing there. Yeah.
I don't want to be dealing with your fucking dead body buried on my property after your wife dies. Yeah. People check that out. The Journey of the Fool is the blog post. Now, I mentioned to you when we were setting up the interview today. Now, kicking to the liminality, I guess, again of this episode. This is the first, I guess you could say, quote unquote, real Binnall of America of 2024, because the first episode people will be hearing this year is the year in review of 2023. So we're here in 2024. I do kind of want to do a little, in a sense, year in review. First, I want to put you over, man, because you, obviously, everyone knows I'm like a paranormal news fiend. That's what they pay me to do. So I'm constantly I live in the river of the paranormal news. I'm floating down it like a lazy river every day, just reaching into the water, trying to pull shit out. And you really, I don't think you ever intended necessarily to be this way, but you really established yourself as a fantastic source for weird news. I can honestly say in 2023, I probably, I got several stories from your Twitter feed that hadn't crossed my path yet. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Holy shit. I'm going to write about this. This is wild. So, and believe me, it's hard to find good paranormal news sources. So your feed is tremendous. And then you run stories that I find on Coast to Coast that you hadn't seen yet, or, so we kind of help each other out, and I appreciate that in a big way. But I gotta tip my cap to you, man. The stuff that you're doing, it's just fantastic. You really have a great eye for weird news, and strange stories from around the world. So, I know how hard it is. So I have a real appreciation for your skill at the art of cultivating weird stories.
Yeah. I do try. I mean, I would rather be like writing more than I do, but I'm also like, kind of a news junkie for weird stuff. And I think of it the same way. Like a lot of the stuff I do share doesn't really have a paranormal bent to it. It's not like UFO sightings and, the ghost caught on camera. Cause I mean, there's a lot of garbage online that, frankly,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's just bad stuff, I know how to avoid that. And a lot of stuff I find isn't like that at all, but I do find articles about like a species that wasn't recognized by science before. It might be a spider or a small lizard or something.
Right.
But that is tangential to cryptozoology, so I like to throw that up there too. Weird pop culture stuff, weird people, eccentric people, and anything paranormal that I find too. So I often will just stumble upon them. I end up just finding them and posted in different groups, or I end up on these weird little rabbit holes and want to find out more information about something.
Yeah. I find that happens a lot.
Yeah. So
were there any particular stories that stood out to you that this year that crossed your path that you were like, I fucking love this story, or I love this crazy thing that happened?
Yeah. My top story of the year for me, my favorite, is the nebula that was shaped like a question mark that was caught by the new telescope, because to me that's an amazing just an amazing, perfect encapsulation of the mysteries of the cosmos in one photo from space.
Yeah.
Because it almost looks like too good to be true. Like it was.
I was going to ask you that. Not that I think that they faked it, but like, do you think that that's kind of like part of me, the romantic in me, I suppose you could say, part of me wants to think that's like a message from the ether, like that's
precisely what I think. I think we have this telescope that can see. I mean, we're talking about like, I think I looked it up earlier just to see how far away it was, but some absurd distance, like 3,000 light years away or something like that.
Right.
I don't even know how it
started running recently, so it's not like I think that's part of it in a way, the weird serendipity of it. It's like that it was one of the first few photos I think that came out from this thing.
Yeah, well, it was back in August, so they had been doing it for a while, but I think the news, those photos, the ones I'm specifically talking about, I think that the earliest articles I found about it, specifically referencing the question mark shape, were around the beginning of August.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's almost like you're looking as far out into space as you possibly can, and you're asking the question like, what's out there? What if I go a little further? What's if you go a little further? And then you end up getting your answer, and it's a question mark.
Right, yeah.
And to me, that's what all these mysteries are. Is however many doors you open, at the end of it, you're going to find a question mark,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it was a wonderful, cosmic symbol that just appears there, just perfect, absolutely perfect. I was so enamored with that, and I shared it online, and I feel like not that many people responded to it. I'm like, do you people realize how cool this is?
Well, like you said, it almost looks fake. It almost looks like, again, I don't think it was fake or anything, but it stretches believability almost. It's like, what? That's like, what are the odds? And those are usually my favorite stories too, where it's just like, How did that happen?
Yeah. I mean, this thing's got to be huge. I mean, it's a nebula. It's a
Right.
It's a system. It's of gases and small planetoids and stars and things. So, oh crap! I was going with somewhere with that.
All right. Well, I'll jump in and just It was a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Wonderful to see. Yeah, to me, it kind of looks like if you're playing a video game where you're in a spaceship and there might be like a question mark there because it's directing you on the screen to do another thing, you know.
Yes, you haven't unlocked that part of the universe yet, so it's
or it's like movie credits. And the movie credits are rolling, and it's like the end, and then the end goes away, and there's just a question mark, like
yes,
the end.
It was like cinematic. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. I get excited about
joke, right?
These space advancements. Yeah.
And
it does show how we really don't know, even though presumably it's just a natural phenomenon. It carries with it that message that we have no idea what the fuck is out there.
Right.
And that is the way we've discovered so much. It's interesting. I always kind of like, as I get older and shit, it just happens so slowly in a way.
Yeah.
This idea that like, when I first got into this, I've told this story before. This is no diss on Steve Bassett, but I talked to him when I was going to the Original X conference, like in 2002, which is like 21 years ago, or 2003. Actually, 2003, so 20 years ago. And he was like, I was like in my early 20s, and he was like, "Oh, you're only like 24. You're going to be going into space. You're going to be flying around in rocket ships and all this other shit." And it's like, dude, I'm like I'm going to be 45 at the end of this month, being January. There, folks. And that ties back to the whole thing where I'm not really 45. I'm going to be 45 like in fucking few weeks. So, but here I am, and I've never been to fucking space, and I'm never going to go to space. The opportunity to go to space, even if it ever becomes super commercialized and easy to do, like flying in a plane, that probably won't be for like another 20 years. So now you're talking like I'm going to be like 65. There's no way they would let me go on one of these.
Well, you never know.
Now
Shatner went up there and he's like 90.
That's true. But he seems like he's in a lot better shape than I am, even though he's 90.
Well, he got up there. They let him on the ship because he's a national treasure, and so are you.
That's
Tim.
true.
So you're a national treasure. They'd make it happen for you.
Like a stowaway. But yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, that's the weird thing. And I was giving Tyler Coachon some shit on our Christmas show about it too, where it's like, because you've been in this for as long as I have. You also kind of see like this fridge thing where it's like, oh, nanotechnology is going to change the world. And, they're going to grow livers on the outside of a fucking rabbit's belly, and you're going to be able to get a new liver, and they'll put it. It's like, bitch, it's been fucking, it's been like 20-something years you've been telling us this shit's going to happen. Like, when am I going to get my new liver?
Well, they are making artificially made meat now, I guess.
There you go.
That might actually be useful, I could see that.
That could be, yeah. I've never had the...
I want some of that Star Trek technology, though, I want a replicator. And a replicator would be good. Make me a cup of tea or whatever I want from the replicator. A holodeck would be cool. I guess that kind of exists in some way, but
yeah, they're kind of coming up with that with like virtual reality and stuff, I suppose. But
transporter,
that's why
we don't have that yet. We can't beam down to planets and stuff.
No, we can't do anything particularly really awesome. That's like the best thing is I have a little Alexa in my house that can tell me like what the capital of Iowa is if I need to know right away. But I don't really, or I have to look at it on my phone. But I guess we're spoiled in a way. You see these things, and it's we're so used to having this information at the tip of our fingers that now it's become commonplace. And it's like, what more is there?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I still like my books.
Can't go wrong with a good book.
Right.
But I was saying this to Steve Berg back on our revival show way back in the summer, where it's like, I think maybe a part of this interest in the paranormal in recent years does have to do with the internet in a sense where it's like we have access to information now that it's much easier to find out information about shit that's known.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to like know everything about Australia, you could like do it you could like find out, you just go to Wikipedia, you could find out like in an hour. You could probably really pretty much get a thumbnail look at everything you need to know about Australia. Where back in the day, you have to go to the fucking library, you have to do all kinds of research and everything, you have to do a lot of reading. Now you can get it done like in an hour or something. And I think maybe that might be part of what fuels the interest in the paranormal. It's like, these are still the things here are the things we don't know. Like, where is this thing? What is this Bigfoot thing? What is, what is behind the UFO phenomenon? Are there ghosts? What happens when you die? So these are still the questions we still don't have answers for.
Yeah, we probably never will. So that's why I say get comfortable with the mystery,
Exactly. But I think that's maybe what fuels the interest in a lot of this from, the modern people in a sense, contemporaneous culture, if you will.
Yeah, and things have a way of going viral, and reappearing. All it takes is somebody uploading something to the internet and somebody with the appropriate amount of reach promoting it a bit, and now all of a sudden it's a household thing and people know about it. Podcasters start doing podcasts about it.
It's like the flat Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the flat Earth was intentionally done. I have a conspiracy theory about the flat Earth.
Let's hear it. I'm a flat Earth aficionado.
I think it was promoted by some people. I'm not sure who they were, but it was promoted as sort of a psyop to see what kind of thing, how ridiculous we could get people to believe in. What are the limits of ridiculousness if we're going to start a trend of people believing strongly in something absurd?
Interesting.
How much can we just tilt the scales toward insanity and get away with it?
Yeah. Well, taking that theory to a different level, it's like one wonders if it was like a prototype for the QAnon thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah. I think I've long thought it was a dry run for QAnon. We're like, if we can get this to catch on, then we know we can get momentum with any wacky idea that we come up with.
Right. And what are the techniques and methods that work? Like, what is, because I think most of the flat earthers, apparently there was a rudimentary study, sort of a survey at the Flat Earth Convention a few years ago, not the one I went to, but a researcher asked people where they heard of it, and like out of 100 people, 99 said they heard about it through YouTube.
Right.
And the one remaining person heard about it from his girlfriend's dad, who heard it from YouTube. So it was like crazy.
And as you know, there was a storied history of flat eartherism. So like all of those arguments are well documented that the ones they're spouting now are the same ones they were spouting back in the 1800s,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
With the exception,
nothing has changed about the fucking shape of the earth. That's the weirdest part about the conspiracy theory. It's like, how you either prove it or you don't, dude. Like how much more research can you fucking do on this thing?
Yeah, and I mean, wasn't there some rapper or something that
Bob or B.O.B.
I always something like that. Yeah,
get it confused. But that sparked the modern mainstreamification of
and that's what kind of makes me suspicious. It's like you had one person that had just enough reach to like plant the seeds, and then they just sat back and watched, and they're like, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
Like, can we get this to catch on? And if it does, then we can try something else even more absurd, or more weaponized, So
yeah, exactly. It's a tough it's a tough time for the world of conspiracy. It's not fun anymore either. It's kind of like what I was saying about UFOs. It's conspiracy gone mainstream, and it's not really that entertaining anymore.
Well, the two are intimately related, because now all of us old heads in this that have been called conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat wearers, made fun of for our interest in UFOs. Now that UFOs are chic, we're still called that.
Yeah.
Because we
yeah.
Because I mean, those two things are very much held together. And nowadays, like, you know, people on UFO Twitter will have accused me of being like a paid shill to debunk, and they do it to Jack Brewer too. Like, and you know, all these.
Yeah.
They consider him to be haters. Mick West is getting paid to discredit UFO sightings. Like, oh man, I don't think that's how it is. I haven't got my paycheck. I'm waiting.
Yeah, no, it's
whoever's cutting that check has really forgotten about me. If they need my address, they can DM me because I could use it. You know.
Yeah, that whole idea, like, yeah, that extends to like the whole thing. Like, everyone's on the payroll of George Soros. It's like, dude, no one's getting fucking paid. Like, I don't know where this idea of like people, you know, like maybe some high powered asshole might get some money, but it's certainly not fucking the rank and file people on Twitter or whatever. It's just people with opinions. No one's fucking like,
yeah.
And the funny part is, it's like, you think that wouldn't, like, people wouldn't, that wouldn't be exposed somehow? Like, there's a funding campaign.
The term conspiracy theory is dead now to me. Like, that doesn't mean anything anymore. And I mean, it used to always be that, the way I always understood it, and this may or may not be true, but they always used to say, like, they invented the term conspiracy theory to describe people that didn't accept the official story about the JFK assassination.
Yeah, that's always the story I heard too.
Yeah, and that,
or they popularized it like that. Yeah, they kind of like put it into the
Yeah, and it was originally designed as a derogative term. It was originally supposed to be something to discredit people, you know.
Right.
And it's always been a fringe thing, but you simultaneously have people in the UAP world seemingly validating what conspiracy theorists have always thought, that the government never stopped studying UFOs and all this other stuff, and they have some secrets. Right. That should be validation for the old school conspiracy theorists. But now, when you don't trust that the official sources and whistleblowers and the Elizondos of the world and the pop punk musicians are being straight with us and giving us the straight dope on this, now we're paranoid and we're the bad kind of conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Exactly.
It's a weird turn of affairs, you know? So,
the whole field has been turned upside down, and it's really strange.
And people online use the word conspiracy theory. Like, there was a funny tweet a while ago that went viral that somebody said, I heard a conspiracy theory that the Loch Ness Monster is actually the ghost of a dinosaur. And since it harms no one, I choose to believe this with all of my heart, you know. But that's not a conspiracy. What's the conspiracy? There's no conspiracy there.
Right. Yeah.
Like, for the record, it's a funny joke. Like, I laughed pretty hard when I first saw it, but people use the conspiracy theory like that. Like, they think like a ghost sighting is a conspiracy theory, and you're like, no, you're just being really fast and loose with that term now. It doesn't mean
right.
anymore.
Yeah.
And then you see examples in Congress of people that are the dangerous kind of conspiracy theorist, you know, talking about Jewish space lasers or whatever else, you know. It's insanity. We have elected officials that believe insanity.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. It's gotten very strange. Believe me, I never thought I'd see like the UFO phenomenon occupy the thoughts of anyone of any significance in Washington in a way that it is now. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but it's very off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, who profits from it, though? I mean, who benefits is the real question in politics with that, you know? It seems like both sides of the aisle have been involved. and you have to wonder, like, is there monetary interest there? I mean, I came across something. Somebody had posted about David Grush being having a financial interest in a contracting agency for the Defense Department. So it's just kind of like the very kind of contractor that would get a contract for studying UFOs if the bill goes through. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
these people are all. Yeah. I mean, I think the whole point of the UAP programs is to funnel money into the Department of Defense, and that's all they want. And if they can't do it that way, they do it the old-fashioned way by starting a war somewhere.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, that might have been. Who knows what's going on with the tensions around the world as it is? Yeah. Well, the two things that kind of came to mind while you were saying that is, one, when you say who benefits, this Burchett guy. Like, he was a nobody until he started spouting off about UFOs, and now he's risen up to he's risen up to like a star level congressman, and offering his opinion on actual real issues. And it's like, dude, I don't give a fuck what you think about any of the other stuff, man. I've already heard you spout off about UFOs, but somehow he's raised his profile like insanely by being the UFO guy. So he certainly is happy with how things are going. And I've heard I agree with your argument in a sense, and I've heard it plenty, and I'll probably have put it forward myself, where it's like, this seems like just kind of a cash grab by the military industrial complex, if you will. And like, I just wish for once someone would be like, you know what? Fuck you. We give you all this money. You should already know what these things are. Like, why? You don't need more money. We give you tons of fucking money. You should already be able to figure this out. So you don't need more money. Like, how much money do they need? That kind of that's the part that drives me nuts. Yeah. That and their shitty fucking cameras. Like, it's, and radar.
It's better cameras, man.
Yeah. It's like, how much do these jets cost? They cost like multi-million dollars. Maybe get something better than a Ring camera on it, and we'll know what these things are.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another term that you hear thrown around a lot, but military industrial complex has been around as a term for a long time. I mean, that comes from Eisenhower, Yeah. And a president that was leaving office used that word, and he said we should be aware of that and be wary.
He warned about it, yeah.
And we should have back then. And I mean, not for nothing, but when Eisenhower was president, there was like something like crazy, like a 90% tax rate on corporations, and that your average taxpayer didn't have to pay that much, and that's why.
Yeah, I figure.
That's why you could have a single income family of living in the suburbs.
Yeah.
That was possible back then. So now we're on the complete opposite end of that. These corporations pay nothing. Elon Musk pays nothing. Bezos is not paying anything close to the rates and the percentages we pay as your average Joe.
Right.
And the Defense Department is squeezing every little bit of that as much as they can. And that machine always needs to keep going. The machine always needs to be perpetuated. And the gears of that machine are greased with the blood of the people that die as a result of those weapons being deployed. So,
yeah.
This took a dark turn.
It's a rotten situation, but let's talk about something that you do love, and is more lighthearted. You've kind of become affiliated or associated or synonymous with donuts.
Yes.
Donuts is your thing. You're like the donut guy.
Donut wizard, I think, is what the preferred nomenclature.
Okay, I humbly apologize, Lord Hopewell of the donuts. Well, you have the show,
the Holy Donut.
Tell me about the Holy. And I said to you the other day, I felt bad. We did Video A Revival. Your show has Revival, and it was just a complete zeitgeist sort of synchronistic turn of affairs. So,
we picked the same word for the show. I mean, you've had the same name for your show for a decade or more. And it's the revival now, and that's great because that's what I got is the Holy Donut Revival Hour. With my good friend SJ. SJ and I have been friends for a number of years, and the donut has always been a symbol for us because it began with a joke that we should have our own TV show where we go on ghost hunts and visit paranormally significant locations and then try the local donuts there. That was our pitch for a TV show. And this has evolved over time where we've seen the light and we understand that the donut is actually a holy symbol. So that our YouTube show, and we both went to YouTube too. That's the other funny thing. That's also
yeah.
How to think about it. The Holy Donut Revival Hour on YouTube is SJ and I getting real weird and wacky with all this stuff that that Binnall of America fans will enjoy. So you can check us out over there. We're booking guests now. We haven't had any guests yet. We've been kind of testing the waters. We have 3 or 4 episodes up, and one. Well, it'll probably be more by the time this episode airs. But
and it's a video show, right? Yeah.
It is video, which is kind of cool. SJ does all the editing, and so without them, I would never be able to do the show.
It's complicated. I
barely
know what I'm doing on here.
It's a good medium because when we talk about, we'll go on weird tangents and then we can kind of edit in an explanatory video in the middle of it.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're really good at putting images in, sometimes just the picture of the book I'm referencing or
nice. Yeah.
Text. So the video medium helps us out a lot. We may do an audio version if some people have asked us to, so we might see if we can do some kind of audio version too for podcast feeds. But as of right now, it's on the YouTube, and you can find us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. We have accounts for those. Yeah. So
see, you're an old man like me. You call it the YouTube. It's the YouTube.
I do that on purpose.
I do it by nature. So it's
I usually say the YouTubes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, it's a whole different world over there. I forget when it dawned on me, but it was I think I read an article about someone that was a big YouTube star. I didn't realize that it's a whole different universe of stars and people that are celebrities that young people love and I've never heard of, and they get more people watching their videos than watch network TV. And I watch. I'm like an old fogey. I'm like, you don't know who Julia Roberts is, but you know who Jake Paul is. This is so weird.
Well, it's weird because all of these different corners of the internet are their own little worlds. They're their own little purpose. So, I mean, just posting on Twitter all the time for the last however many years, that was my main social media source, and I've had to branch out ever since Musk took over because it's got really unreliable and frankly kind of bad.
No, it is. I will say, I mean, I don't know. You're more frequent. You're more an active participant in what's called weird Twitter. I kind of, I barely use Twitter, to be honest, and but from what I've been in when I participate in weird Twitter, it doesn't seem as bad as if you leave that bubble. Anytime you go to any news article about anything with politics or social issues, it's turned into a complete fucking cesspool of a site.
And I mean,
unbearable.
I've been getting. I mean, I think I wear my politics on my sleeve pretty well, so I mean, people know where I stand. And I in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten promoted posts from Bill O'Reilly, Fox News, the Epoch Times, and I'm just like, am I being trolled by the advertisers here? On Facebook, I'll get advertisements for a TV show that I was just talking about. So my phone was listening, and picked up on it somehow. At least it's relevant to something I said. But on Twitter, it's like I'm getting ads for like all this right wing bullshit, and I'm like, there is no way that interests me on any level. Like, what are they doing? I've blocked many accounts like this. Like, I blocked Tucker Carlson. I was very close to blocking Elon Musk, but I like to keep an eye on that particular jackass.
Yeah, I actually did. Yeah, I blocked him, but luckily or unfortunately, you can't avoid his fucking shit anyway. So
you can't.
Like,
you'll see screenshots.
You can have him blocked, but then when you're looking at the news, it's like Elon Musk said something super fucking stupid, and it's like you can't block him from life. It's a cruel fucking irony that within a year or two of us ridding ourselves, God willing, of Donald Trump fucking dominating the news for saying and doing stupid and hateful fucking shit, that here along comes fucking Elon Musk to fill the void and become the hateful, stupid fucking dude dominating the news. It's like, man, we can't catch a fucking break.
We really can't. And like I said, everybody likes having a villain, I guess, you know. But and there are people that are fanboys too, which is astounding to me. But
that's really weird. I don't.
The point I was trying to get to is that they're all different corners of the internet. So I've had to branch out, and it's like you go on Instagram and you're like, "Oh, who's this person? I've never heard of them." And they're like, "Oh, they got like 100,000 followers on Instagram," you know?
Right, yeah.
And then you end up like meeting people via the, you know, I ended up meeting a bunch of people that only use Instagram, like my pal Todd Persh. Like, he's an artist. He's really cool. He draws these little cartoons, and I talk to him sometimes, but he's only on Instagram. It's the only place I'll find him.
That's wild.
But he's got a big following there, and I made friends with him there, and it's like he's not going to come over to Twitter. So it's like any of these.
Oh yeah, no one's coming over to Twitter now.
Yeah, and there are people that just while they're at work have YouTube on background all day, and they have different channels that they're always listening to. So YouTube's its own little world too. All these different avenues or different places you can go. It's really wild how much you branch out in each one. You know, and there's plenty of weirdos out there to meet, and they're not all on Twitter. I guess is
absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure. Now I told you to have this answer for me for the show here. Now, you're the what are you, the executive director of donutry? No, what is the
of the donut czar of the donut
donut wizard,
yeah.
Yes. So what is, if you can choose, what is your favorite kind of donut? What's your preferred, you go into a donut shop, what are you going to get?
Yeah, there's a complicated answer to that because aesthetically, the strawberry frosted donut with sprinkles is the best choice. Like the good pink frosting,
I like
multicolored sprinkles. And,
it's like Pepto-Bismol, but it tastes delicious.
Yes. Yep. And if I were to buy a donut that I wanted to take a selfie with, I think it would be that. Like
it's very photogenic.
Yeah, it's a beautiful looking donut. That's as far as the taste, it's like I'm not really the sweet fruity taste. Like I would prefer chocolate taste wise. So that's where I would go for that. I think one of my favorite donuts ever is there's a place called N&J Donut in Oxford, Massachusetts, and they have a Texas donut there. And it is quite literally a donut the size of your face. And it's the regular old chocolate frosted donut, but it is the size of your face.
Wow.
And I think that's probably my favorite donut. And yes, I will eat an entire one. So.
All right. Interesting. Okay.
But I will not say no to a Bismarck or a coffee roll. Those are pretty close. They're pretty close with donuts to
donut cousins.
Yeah.
See,
they're in the donut family. Yeah.
Maybe you would know this as the donut wizard. I don't know if this is. I'm sure there's a regional bias here, obviously, but I'm of course partial to the Boston cream. I always go with the Boston cream. The combination of the donut, the dough, the chocolate, and the fucking cream, it's
really good. Yeah.
It's fantastic. What I was wondering is, the donut wizard. Do you know? Obviously, New England Boston cream. You're going to find it everywhere. Is the Boston cream available, popular, sold around the country, or is this a regional delicacy?
I'm pretty sure you can get Boston. I think Boston cream is just a flavor now, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And I think you can probably get it anywhere. But I'm really not sure now. Now I'm intrigued. I don't know. But I think they have, like, Dunkin' Donuts all over the country, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So, and I know Dunks has it, so, but...
That would be my preferred, and I think I tipped you off to a comedy bit. I don't have the guy's name in front of me. I apologize, but he did a whole shtick on lemon donut, and I became like a lemon donut enthusiast after that. And as he pointed out, it's like you're taking a shower. It's like this. You feel fresh after you eat a lemon donut. It's the lemon, the powderiness, again the dough. It's again another perfect combination of flavors.
Yeah. Oh man, I haven't had a lemon donut in a long time. Yeah.
Have a lemon donut. Yeah.
Now, have you ever had like the mochi donuts? They're like they're kind of weird shaped, but I think it's like a Vietnamese style of donut or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I've not had a mochi donut.
So there's a lot of like new independent donut shops popping up.
Oh,
and I'm
God.
for it, you know, because
donuts are like the new craft beer.
Yeah. Well, there's actually a place in Worcester that's called Donuts and Drafts. That is
there
donuts
you go.
and beer. That's what they have is donuts and beer. So, yeah. So, I've tried all kinds of exquisite donuts lately, like maple frosted with bacon on it.
Yeah, that's a popular one.
That's a good one. The one.
See, I like artisanal donuts, but not when they take it too far, because then you're just kind of like overwhelmed in a way.
Yeah, you got to split it with somebody at that point.
Oh yeah, there's a place in my town, Rocco's Donuts. I think of Rocco's Donuts.
Right.
It's like
their flagship is in my hometown. I didn't know there was one out near you now.
Yeah, there's one in my town, and they have one that's like Fruity Pebble covered, like it's like a frosted donut on the top. It's just like a fucking layer of fruity, and you see it again, and much like the strawberry donuts, very aesthetically pleasing. Where you're like, that is colorful and cool, and I want to get it. But then you get it, and you're kind of like, I'm just kind of chewing on like dry fruity pebbles.
Yeah.
And
it's
not a great.
I wouldn't want to do that. Yeah.
As ridiculous as this sounds, it has a terrible mouthfeel. You're just like,
well, that's important.
I don't want my fucking donut to be crunchy. I don't want a crunchy donut.
Well, I like a little bit of crunch, like a
little bit, but not a layer.
One has the bacon, or the one that has crumbled Oreo cookie. I could do with that, because it's crunch, but then it kind of that's a good one. But this brings me to a question I had for you.
Yeah.
Would you consider, as part of your YouTube channel, doing short video segments where you eat questionable snacks, like weird snacks?
I would definitely consider it. I'll say this: it's the new year. I'm kicking around an idea of a spin-off show in a way.
Yeah, kind of like Danny's reaction show, but you're reacting to food, like the weird off-brand snacks. I
would absolutely do that. I love any novelty snack, any like market research snack where they're like just introduce it into like the Boston suburb. We'll see how it does in the Boston suburbs, and that's
you could link up with the distributors and like when they're sending these out, just have them send them directly to your house, and then you could do videos for them. That's what the kids do these days, Tim. You could have a little spin-off show.
I'll definitely. Yeah, I should keep that in mind as part of the spin-off idea. Because I would definitely do that because I do anything that's like new like that. I will immediately buy. I'm a huge sucker for.
Yeah.
I just bought
ham flavored chips. You say?
Yes, I just got fucking SpaghettiOs doused in Red Hot, and it was disgusting. And I didn't even. I had like 3 bites, and I'm like, this is fucking nasty. Because I don't even like SpaghettiOs in the first place because they have sort of a tang.
This
to
is
it, like a
important.
tangy flavor?
Oh, yeah, it's almost
Okay.
tinny, right? It seems like it's like got metal in it or something.
Yeah. It's I don't like the flavor of SpaghettiOs whatsoever. So I'm like, oh, maybe this Red Hot will cut that taste down. But it's like, no, now it's just fucking Red Hot flavored.
See,
Awesome.
this is precisely the kind of information the public needs from you, Tim. This is the kind of reporting you need to be doing. This is why God put you here. We need the spin-off show, Questionable Snacks with Tim Binnall, and you can give us the straight poop on what these things actually taste like and whether or not we should try it. You know,
I'll definitely consider it. I'm both excited and disheartened by the way that some of these things become. Like, look, you used to have just Hershey Kisses. Then they came out with like Hershey Hugs, which is like white chocolate wrapper. Now you go to the fucking store and it's like 80 different kinds of Hershey Kisses. It's like, I can't keep up with all this. As a person who wants to sample everything, this is, they're going to throw me out of the grocery store. Going to be opening all the bags. Like, let me just try one fucking mint chocolate chip flavored Hershey Kiss. I don't want to spend $8 on a fucking bag if it's disgusting.
right?
So yeah, maybe I could be doing a public service in that sense.
I think so. But more than that, you could probably just write directly to like Mars Candies and just have them like send you all of their prototypes, you know, do little promo videos, you know. So
I will definitely give it some thought. Now you put out a little book, a small book. I don't know what you'd call it, a book,
right.
a little
ebook, an
ebook. Yeah. Earlier this year, talk a little bit about that, plug it so people can check it out.
Yeah, that's on. You can find a link to that on my blog page if you go to the published works section on the sidebar there. So anything I have published is over there. The book itself is free if you want it to be free. If you want to throw money at me, I won't stop you. It's published through a service called Gumroad, and it's called Strange Words for a Weird World. And that's it's got a handful of writings. It's got some poetry because I used to write a lot of poetry, so I wanted to put some poems together in there. It's got a few essays. It's got kind of a bit of a satire piece in there. You can read about how George Lucas actually caused the Mandela effect by reading that book.
Is this the Han shot first thing?
Yes. The special edition was what fractured reality and caused people to remember alternate timelines. That's in there. That's in the book. You can read all about it. So, So it is. It's pay what you want. There was one very kind soul gave me $20 for that book, and I hope he didn't regret it. I was like, oh geez, I hope he paid me like $1 a page here. That's just and it's got pictures. I put some illustrations in, and any of it, the illustrations are all my own artwork too. So I just kind of put together a melange of things I've done in a booklet, and it's really people can pay me if they want to, but they don't have to, and everybody can benefit from it. And you can find the link right there on the site. So
now, beyond that, have you? I don't want to diminish this, but I mean, have you ever thought about writing? Maybe I feel like you and I have maybe a similar problem in a way, where it's like. Because look, people have been on my fucking ass to write a book for years.
Yeah.
I actually had somebody say, like, once you write a book, you'll be legitimate. I'm like, fuck motherfucker. Like, I only write for, like, the biggest fucking radio show in the country and have been broadcasting for 18 fucking years. Like, how much more, how much more legitimate do you need me to fucking be? But it's like, to me, the challenge has always been finding one, like, I think if I wrote a book, it would be a bunch of different little things. And to me, it's like, I can't quite put my mind around that just yet. Because there's a part of me that would like to write that book that's like about one fucking thing. But I don't have that thing. You know what I mean? I love all this shit. I have an interest in all this stuff. And I'm always kind of bouncing around to all the different subjects.
Yeah. And I mean, if you, I think for you, like, if you look at like the old like Frank Edwards books or some of those books that are just kind of a collection of stories, like that might be fun for you to do something like that, you know?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Like your favorite things that you've covered, you know, and kind of write about them and how they're similar to each other, different.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Like you could have a whole chapter on strange things left on people's doorsteps that you've covered. The mashed potatoes or the TVs, and like you've had a few good stories like that. So, but yeah,
well, I do find myself. I don't know about you, but I do find myself with the years finding myself more fucking fascinated almost by the strange things people do, than almost the phenomena. It's like people are as fucking weird as the paranormal, man. Probably weirder. Weirder. They do shit. Every year I wrap up the year and I write down all the craziest stories for Coast to Coast that I covered the year. And it's like, how did that even happen? Like, how? Like, I cannot believe this thing happened.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. And I mean, I think the paranormal stuff really is like a reflection of people in a lot of ways. So people are always going to try to one-up it. It's like something seemingly paranormal happens, and then there's always going to be that one guy that's like, hold my beer. Going for it even weirder than that, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, I keep being told I should write a book.
Don't you hate those people?
No.
Oh no, that's you want to say you're
I'm
my
married
wife.
to one of them. So,
I apologize.
And I'm very glad that she's so encouraging. But she's always like, "You just need to write a book," you know. Yeah. And people tell me that. Oh, I was joking recently with our mutual friend Black Wolf. You know, Black Wolf
John Oates. I like
about Whitley Strieber, and he said that I needed to start talking more like him. So my wife Pam, my muse, told me I need to write this down. So maybe I'll just work that into my repertoire and start referencing her all the time, and then I'll end up writing a bunch of books. So no offense to Whitley if you're watching this. Sorry, Whitley. I didn't mean to make fun of you.
I'm sure he's cool.
I only made fun of you a little bit, but I mean my problem is that I come up with specific ideas for books I want to write, but then I also want to write my blog posts. I want to keep those going because it's important to me to cover all the subjects I want to. And also I work full time, largely for idiots, and that can be very stressful and leaves me with very little energy at the end of the day. So
no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's tough to find the energy to write, to really dedicate yourself to a project like that. You have to really it has to really capture your imagination and kind of, really fucking just become your obsession in a lot of ways. And nothing's really obsessed me yet.
I've got 2 or 3 things that I probably could focus on that much and write a book about, and but it would require me being independently wealthy or at least able to have more free time than I currently do. And I'm not going to be able to fit in writing a book while I'm not at work hours if I work too many. Like yesterday I worked 12 hours. At the end of a 12-hour day, I'm not sitting down to write.
Right, exactly.
It's not happening, so.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on that note, it's getting late in the evening here. It's 11:11 actually, so make a wish, everybody.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. And we'll wrap up the conversation here. I feel like we could talk for a long time. We have talked for a long time, not just tonight, but when we hang out, we end up chatting, obviously, the whole time and talking about all this stuff and even more craziness.
Usually there's more beer involved and weird locations. Sometimes pizza. Yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled that I could get you on here for the BOA revival. When we had you on, we were joking about it, but like when we had you on last time, it was like your first appearance. So it was like, all right, let's kind of hit all the let's hit all the AP Strange highlights. We touched on the clowns a little bit, but tonight, but it was like clowns, Elvis. Let's do it. And when we came into tonight, I'm like, it was kind of tough because you're like, anything you want to talk about? It's like I kind of just want to have a conversation to see where it goes, and that's what happened tonight, and I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, a full 2 hours.
Yeah. And I think the only thing I really had in my notes was this Bigfoot thing and the journey of the fool, and a couple of pretty much all the stuff I sent you, just like 3 or 4 things. Like, all right, let's just hit on these 4 things, but
and the most
in my mind, I was like,
The most important is the donut. Yeah, the donut question.
Absolutely.
You got a heads up about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can't thank you enough, man. As I said at the beginning of the show, you're a great friend. I hope we can hang out more in 2024. There's lots of opportunities for adventure. I'll pitch this to you here on the show. Like, we should fucking go down and just spend the night in the Lizzie Borden house sometime.
Yeah, I mean,
why not?
I know a guy that works there, so we can make that happen probably.
Yeah, we should do that. I mean, it'd be cool. We can't camp out at America's Stonehenge yet, but who knows? When his son takes over, the America's Stonehenge guy didn't seem very accommodating to foolishness and hijinks and eccentrics. So, but I think he's grooming the next generation of America's Stonehenge, and maybe when his son takes over, he'll be like, "You want to camp in the fucking back? Sure, all right. Here's how much it'll cost you." But yeah,
well, we're definitely gonna find that rock,
the Dover Demon spot. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and we'll document that for our respective YouTube channels so people can, and we'll fucking know it. We want to like actually put a pin on it so people can, much to the chagrin.
We could add it to. We'll add it to Liminal Earth, and that way there'll be coordinates there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were joking because much like Newburyport, Dover's kind of a little bit of a posh town. It's like, boy, they must like fucking hate Lauren Coleman because like there's two eccentric looking weirdos walking down the road looking for a rock that a fucking alien looking creature, a crawler, as Nate Brislin would classify it, hanging out on a rock.
Plenty of people in outdoorsman hats walking around. The official cryptozoologist hat that they all seem to wear.
Exactly. But it was great to have you back on the show, man. I really love the conversation. Like I said, hopefully we can have some more adventures in 2024, and we'll catch people up on those when you're back on the show in the future.
Hell yeah. Here's to 2024 and to our respective revivals.
There you go.